Hello, 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 hello. It's good to see you. Say hello.
Welcome to the Husky Hockey Podcast, your number one resource to remind you that if you aim for opponent's head when they're going through the neutral zone, sometimes you're going to have to sit an extra game. And I think Brendan Bushy is going to learn that lesson the hard way. I'm Weldie, sitting here with Andrew. We're going to talk things, Husky hockey, college hockey. We got a week off a little bit. Or for the next couple of weeks, as we're kind of gearing up for maybe some World Juniors time. And so it's going to be kind of a random, loosey-goosey show, in my opinion. Let's just kind of see where everything kind of takes us. What do you think about that?
I know it'll be a large departure from our normal, highly organized, very focused, no tangents, regular season podcast. So bear with us.
Yep. Usually we are incredibly structured and we stay on schedule and we do not go off script, but now all bets are off.
We certainly never talk about TV. Hey, I saw that Better Call Saul finale.
Ooh.
Seriously, I'm not saying we shouldn't go on those tangents because we never do, but I did see the finale finally. That's redundant.
Gotcha. And for the spoiler people and whatnot, without going into too much detail, I guess I don't know the statute of limitations anymore of what's a spoiler and what's not. I feel like it still would be. Maybe if a year goes by, 2 years. I don't know. Like, here's the thing. I have never watched the end of The Wire. Okay. I feel like if that is spoiled for me, that's on me.
Yeah, I think
by
that's
now
fair.
I should have watched the end of it. I have season 5 left. People have said season 5 isn't that good. Coming from a print journalism background and hearing about it, I'm actually really intrigued by it, but it's a heavy show. So it's like really got, to have that commitment. So I haven't finished it. But like that's early 2000s TV. So it's like that's kind of on me.
Yeah.
If that, but I don't know, like, spoiling Game of Thrones now, you could probably spoil Game of Thrones. I think Better Call Saul, I think it's too soon. But anyway, the whole point of my tangent on this, again, so scripted, so to a T with our podcast. How'd you like the end of Better Call Saul?
I really didn't care for the last 3 seasons of Better Call Saul, actually. So it was a bit of a slog to get through. Season 6.
I remember we had that discussion once, and I think it's a take. I will say that because I love it.
I know. I'm well aware. I think there's a lot of Emperor Has No Clothes when it comes to that series because with Breaking Bad and its shadow, I think a lot of people think that Gilligan and company cannot do any wrong, so it's very difficult to criticize them. And I'll say that season 6 was the best of the last 3. All of those would be under the first 3 seasons. But I like that season 6 had like the flash forward. You had a part of the series that you didn't know the outcome of, which is sort of the trap of a prequel series. So I liked, although I thought the epilogue kind of drug on a little too long. Didn't need to be four episodes long, but it was okay. Like I said, there was some loose ends were tied up, and I wasn't floored by the finale itself, the final episode, but I got through it. I'm done with it. So there's that.
Yeah, you're done with it. Close the. I don't know if they have like a overarching theme of the sequel, the saga. I guess I don't know if it's like the Meth Chronicles or something like that. They gotta have some kind of catchy, like a Song of Ice and Fire type name.
It's the Breaking Bad universe.
Breaking Bad universe, yeah. Breaking Bad-averse.
There you go,
so to speak. So, yeah, I've been loving the the Pod Meets World podcast, which is the Boy Meets World. It's got Daniel Fishel, Ryder Strong, and Will Friedle. And they're recapping old episodes of Boy Meets World, doing some behind the scenes story. So I've been following up with that. So I'll watch an episode of Boy Meets World, listen to the podcast, and kind of go on the journey with them. As somebody who's been a huge fan of Boy Meets World for years, this has been like a huge treat for me. So it's been a lot of fun to do that. My second favorite podcast, obviously, after this.
Of course.
So exactly. So a little bit of Husky news. Brendan Bushy did end up getting the ban hammer suspension laid down, and he is going to miss a game. And it turns out it's going to be the most important game probably ever. So I don't know. So he's going to sit for the exhibition game, and I can't believe that that's okay. I mean, obviously, I'm happy that Brendan Bushy is going to be available for the big Gopher series, et cetera, et cetera. But like as a overall league rule, I mean, I don't know. What's your thoughts on that? Because my original thought was suspending for an exhibition game. It's not a real game. It shouldn't even count.
Right. I was very surprised to see that. I'm wondering if they didn't have this exhibition game, would they have still suspended him? I'm wondering if this fits into like a
Heather Weems controversy that he.
Well, it's a unique situation. First of all, because generally the exhibition games, at least for St. Cloud, I know they've played the under-18 team mid-season.
Yeah, the under-18, yeah.
But for the majority of their exhibition games, they're the first, they're before the first game of the season. You know what I mean? Like they're generally like before the season starts. So you really can't. Obviously, the league wouldn't be in a position to suspend somebody for an exhibition game if the season hasn't started yet. You know what I mean? So this is a unique situation in that they play a mid-season exhibition game, and it's like, is this the middle ground of we can suspend you for a game here to quote unquote show you a lesson, but it's not going to hinder your team very much because it's an exhibition game, which obviously doesn't count in pairwise. It's a meaningless game other than it's good to knock rust off and just don't get anybody injured. Those are the two main goals of an exhibition game. And I'm glad they're playing it. Like I said, I'd rather go into that Gopher series with an exhibition game under their belt rather than having a month between games. But from Bushy's perspective, he probably wasn't even going to play much in this game anyway. I mean, I don't think your top lines are going to get a ton of action. They'll get some, like I said, to knock the rust off. But this is James Gray's Super Bowl. He's probably going to be playing half the game. You're going to see a lot of the guys. Rosborough is going to be playing 20 minutes plus, I bet. And guys that get scratched regularly are going to get the bulk of action. So I don't even know how much Bushy would have played had he been available. So I don't know if this is an opportunity for the conference to, make a quasi statement. But as it is, it does feel strange. Like if you were going to suspend him, you should suspend him for an actual game, one that counts. What do you think?
Well, here's my take: is that not only like, I don't know the best way to articulate this. So I think that if you are suspended for a play in a conference game, your suspension actually shouldn't happen until the next conference game. Like, your impact should have like weight in conference points attached to it. So even having, being out for the Minnesota game doesn't really do much for Miami or anybody else in the NCHC. It doesn't really affect anything because no conference points are attached to the game against Minnesota. And not only that, you might even be hurting your conference because you're not putting your best player, or in this case, a strong defensive minded presence against a high octane offense, which pairwise common opponents, things that could really help, other teams try to creep up in the pairwise. So it's really actually hurting the conference more that way. So
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think you should, if it's a conference game and you get suspended, you should just serve it in the next conference game, no matter who the next conference opponent is. That's my thought.
I feel it's kind of weird too that these this disciplinary these decisions are made by each conference. It feels like it'd be better suited for just one, like the NCAA as a central body to decide suspensions, because conferences could sort of, I'm not saying take advantage of it, but like, and so I guess it's, if it's like a non-conference game and there was a suspension or there was a bad hit, like, so let's say this happened in the Gopher series and Bushy got a 5-minute major for hitting a Gopher player, like, then you have the NCHC.
A parade down division is what he
That's well played. But I'm saying, like, then you have the position, the NCHC having to suspend their own player against another league. Like, you have a potential of, a conference not wanting to do that in order for, I don't know, competitive advantage of some sort. And so you'd think that the system as it is, with each conference divvying up their own discipline, that it has a potential of being gamed. I'm not saying that is the case, but I just don't know why it doesn't come down from, like, the NCAA. Why don't they just take care of it as a central body rather than leaving it up to all the conferences? I'm not sure, but yeah, as it is, I like that idea of, if it's a conference suspension, it should affect conference play. So in your dream world, or your ideal here, he'd be sitting against CC? I think that's their next conference game the week after the Gopher home and home. I believe it's CC at home. So yeah, that's an interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way, but you make a good point. I'm with. I think I'm with it. I think I'm with you on this one.
Yeah,
let's do that.
Yeah. I get what you're saying about the overarching, like, have one body handle suspensions for all. No way. Yeah, you're right. No way that the NCAA would even do that.
Well, you have a point there.
Though. So, I mean, they're
really
not gonna care. They're really not going to care what's the best for college hockey.
You're right. No one has ever said, "Hey, wait, the NCAA can fix this." Those words.
I got an idea. Hey, hear me. Hey, hear me out. Let's have the NCAA handle it. They've never had any bad ideas. It's all good ideas.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, exactly. So yes, CC at home. That would be in my scenario. So, but so yeah, we'll just miss him for the home game against Minnesota, which I guess is punishment enough, because that usually has some of the best atmosphere. So, but yeah, so that came down shortly after I hit publish on our.
Well, we speculated on it. I mean, we thought that might be a possibility. I just didn't think that they would suspend him just for the exhibition game. But
yeah, that wouldn't, because I got that from Sloshman. So when he tweeted that, I was like, this is, I'm happy for it, obviously, as a St. Cloud State fan, but as a person of integrity like myself, it's it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So, maybe a little bit of breaking news. The World Junior roster has been finalized, and they had their first pre-tournament game against Finland, where they won 5-2. So it's sounded like it was a little bit rough in the first period, but they kind of started getting a little bit better, and as the game went on. So I didn't get a chance to watch it, but we've got Jack Peart, which, according to the USA Hockey Line chart, the phonetic spelling is Puhrt, one syllable. So Peart. I don't think NC or USA Hockey has it like that. I think USA Hockey has it as Peart.
Just when I was committing to Peart.
Right, exactly.
Because that was
That's
my
like the
original
one that we've actually.
Yeah, my original thing when we mentioned on the podcast, I'm going Neil Peart from Rush. Who spells the name the same. So I was going Peart the entire time, or at least at first, and then as more people were using Peart, it sort of started to grow on me a little bit, and maybe it's like.
What's your favorite Rush song? Did we talk about that? What's your favorite Rush song?
It was kind of like none of the above. I'm not like a huge Rush fan. Like they're okay, but I don't really get into them. I'm not even, like I like prog rock, but not like they're like more like space rock. Not a huge fan of that, but he's talented. I think he's a really good drummer, but just not my cup of tea.
Is it Geddy Lee's voice? Is that what does it?
Yeah, it's too Canadian for me. Let's put it that way.
Gotcha. That's those Canadian artists, I tell you.
Yeah, and we're talking World Juniors here, so screw Canada.
That's how. Yeah, you got a point there. So I'm a Free Will or Limelight are kind of my two. So I've been actually having like a deep dive lately into Queen. Okay. I got a hot take. Ready? Queen, really good.
They are pretty good.
Like so I've been going through some of their albums, like just their, obviously their full albums, Night at the Opera, Day at the Races, which obviously Marx Brothers.
That's good to say. There's a theme here.
Yeah, right. Jazz, The Game, it's News of the World. Like they're like deep cuts and whatnot that you don't hear on the classic rock stations. Like there's some really good songs, mixing some ballads too. Turns out Queen is good. Freddie Mercury, he's a good singer.
Yeah, I always thought they're good. I guess I've never done the deep dives like you were just saying, though. Maybe you're giving me an idea here, but that's good.
Jazz so far has been my favorite, but it also has "Don't Stop Me Now," which obviously is what I tweet out after Huskies win.
Yeah, what else is on that album?
So,
like name just a song or two. What? What album is "Somebody to Love" on? That might be my favorite Queen song. It's a great shower song. Belt it out in the shower.
Yeah. Jazz has Fat Bottom Girls, Bicycle Race. Don't Stop Me Now is kind of the big ones on that one.
That's good. No, they're good. I need to do some deep dives on them. It's a good rec. Similar to Queen, I went on a deep dive. I think they're similar in terms. Electric Light Orchestra, ELO.
Oh, ELO, yeah.
They've kind of got that sort of campy, orchestral, kind of multi-layered, but very catchy Beatles-esque pop songs. ELO's got some bangers. Showdown? Yeah. Oh my God. You want to get me jazzed up for whatever we're doing. Throw on some of that. ELO's got a ton of great hits. Yeah, this is the Boomer Hour presented by a couple of millennials. But hey, it's the best music. Just because I wasn't living when it happened doesn't mean it's not the best.
I read also that like ELO was like created after the Beatles. Like it was supposed to be like how they would have continued on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Jeff Lynne he was a Beatles fanatic, and you can really kind of tell. It's the catch, the hooks, and the catchiness, and yeah, it's good stuff.
Day at the Races has Somebody to Love.
All right.
With Tie Your Mother Down, Good Old Fashioned Lover Boy, You and I. It's if you ever have a chance, I think on YouTube there's Freddie Mercury like only vocals of Somebody to Love.
Oh.
Like all the instrumentals are dropped and whatnot. It's so cool to listen to.
Is that like the the isolated track they have with Van Halen's Running with the Devil? You get David Lee Roth just scream the entire time. It's good stuff.
It's yeah. No, this is actually fun to listen to. So, anyway, what were we talking about? Neil Peart, Jack Peart.
Remember when we said that we're very tight and organized? This is tangent number 2.
Anyway, he was he was listed as first D pairing with Luke Hughes from Michigan. So not too bad, not too shabby. I remember, he made a lot of mistakes his freshman year, but when he went to World Juniors last year, I remember watching him and like I could really see a lot of potential. And maybe that type of style suited his game a little bit more. So I'm excited to just kind of see how he does going forward here in this tournament. Kind of a lot of who's who also for NCHC because obviously you're going to have your Minnesotas, your Michigans. They're going to have always a strong contingent, but Red Savage is the assistant who the Huskies just saw from Miami. Jackson Blake, who I believe he had a goal from North Dakota in the
I think that's right.
the series against St. Cloud. So Noah Laba from Colorado College. Remember, also with the goalie, Caden Mberko. So it's Sean Behrens is also the assistant captain from Denver. So there's a good smattering of NCHC contingent there on this squad this year.
Of course, yeah, everybody had it that Colorado College leading the NCHC in World Juniors representation with 2. Yeah, but Michigan and Minnesota, 9 players.
9 players?
9 players.
9 times. 9 times.
But between those 2 teams, 10 actually, if you count Chaz Lucius, who played the Gophers last year, bolted for the AHL. So 10, I guess, if you count, spanning back to last year, who Lucius played for. So that's not a surprise that these World Juniors rosters has been littered by Big Ten guys, in recent years. Interestingly, those 2 teams, Michigan and Minnesota, that we're mentioning, they do not play regular games. The Gophers have an exhibition game against Bemidji during the World Juniors. I think it's like the 31st or the 1st of January, one of those 2 dates. But Michigan, notably, backing out of the GLI this year, but probably by design. I mean, if that tournament is generally when it is, which is like the first few days after Christmas, like midweek between Christmas and New Year's, that's in the heart of World Juniors time, and better for Michigan to just say we ain't going to schedule any games there than have to do some last minute. Yeah, we're not going to play this game, and leave their opponent out to dry. So maybe see that going forward with like these Big Ten teams, just leaving that week or week and a half, really 2 weeks of scheduling, kind of leaving that blank, at least with pairwise implicated games. Like maybe get an exhibition game for the rest of the team to play in, but might be smart for those teams to not play games that matter when they have a chunk of their roster at the World Juniors.
Mm-hmm. So Great Lakes is Michigan Tech, Western Michigan, Ferris State, and Michigan State.
That's correct. They're playing that in Grand Rapids this year, so not in Detroit.
Van Andel
Arena in Grand Rapids. So I don't know. Ferris State might be like the de facto home team. At least they're the closest school to that rink. I think Michigan Tech is always the home team of the GLI because they're the ones that organized it and founded the tournament. So I think they're always it's their tournament and everyone else is playing in it. But
they have the Broadmoor Trophy. They have the GLI tournament. Like it's just Michigan Tech, just the pioneer of everything.
A lot of elitism up there in Houghton. Very haughty in Houghton.
Haughty in Houghton. Have you ever been to Houghton?
Been through it, yeah. 10, 15 years ago, I did a road trip to the UP and then also did like a road trip throughout all of Michigan, and beautiful city. I mean, that was in the summertime though, so I haven't been there in the winter when it's a little nippy. Yeah, gorgeous.
Not lake effect snow.
Gorgeous. And I drove by the campus and the arena too. It's right on the river. I don't know what river it is. But there's like you cross this like bridge to get into Hancock. I think is like the town that's across the river from them. It's a very scenic. It's like a mini Duluth almost. It struck me kind of. It had a Duluth vibe to it, but on a much smaller scale.
I want to say a few years ago, like Gordon Ramsay did a stop there and like actually ate like at one of the small restaurants and whatnot, and like did a little chit chat with the servers and whatnot about like just how lovely this whole place is and how gorgeous the Upper Peninsula is and whatnot. So I'll try to find that article again. It was kind of a really interesting read.
Send that on. And
I'm also a pretty avid Gordon Ramsay fan, so I love it when he swears it.
That's good.
I can't help it. But yeah, so World Juniors, it's another kind of highly touted college hockey heavy team. I think there's only one player on the roster. I think that
a couple
plays in major juniors.
I thought they said 21 of the 25, so I think there's 4 that
there's 4
that are junior players. But yeah, I mean it's become annual tradition for the U.S. team. That's generally getting their roster from the NCAA. Pretty stark comparison to Canada, which just one NCAA player on their roster, and that is Fantilli, another Michigan player. So that's 5 Michigan players on the U.S. team, and then you add Fantilli, maybe their best player, at least their best forward, on the Canadian team. So yeah, missing 6 guys. But like I said, they don't have a game to play during this stretch.
They don't have a game to back out.
That's right. So. That's right. So it's not shouldn't affect them that much. But it did already affect them because Fantilli missed that Michigan State series they had because he was already playing Canada's camp, which I thought was a little early. I don't think that was really necessary from Canada's perspective, although Canada does take this a little bit more seriously than the U.S. does. This tournament, big deal in Canada, and this is the 3rd straight year that they're hosting it in Halifax and Moncton, so the eastern maritime provinces of Canada, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. Finals the pool play for the U.S. will be in Moncton, but then the quarterfinals and finals will be in Halifax. So it'll be obviously a partisan crowd of Canadians there, and it should be some good hockey. I mean, it's been a good tournament. The U.S. we've seen like the growth of U.S. hockey over the years, just as how competitive they become. They become Canada's main rival, I think. Even notwithstanding this year, obviously Russia not involved in this World Juniors for political reasons. But even if I think that the U.S. has really staked their claim as sort of a major rival here. Obviously, got the other traditional powers, Finland, Sweden. They're always going to bring their game too. So I think that, but I think that you got to look at U.S. and Canada as being sort of your the 2 teams to look for here. If these 2 teams meet, would really like to see that action. What are you looking for here? So we got Pecknold behind the bench, first time for him, Quinnipiac coach. So
yep.
Interesting to see how he puts his stamp on it. I don't feel like we had Lehman last year, but Matsko ran the team a couple of years, winning it 1 year for the U.S. and I think losing in the title game the second year. And he was kind of a rare repeat coach. for them. Canada, on the other hand, will generally have some consistency in coaching. Like their coach will have the junior team for a couple of years. It is a little different how Canada and the U.S. Manage the juniors.
What do you think about that? Like, do you think USA should just pick one coach to do that and just kind of go through it? Or since it's kind of a hodgepodge, you can go year by year and you could use it as a recruiting tool that you've got that experience. I don't know. Like, I can see both sides of it.
Yeah, I wish we had a better World Juniors person to respond to this. Because I just think I don't know how much of a disruption this is for Canadian juniors. For all I know, do the OHL and WHL and QMJHL, do they take breaks in their season to accommodate World Juniors players missing? I don't know. I think it is different because college is the main supplier of players for the U.S., whereas that's not the case for the Canadians. Basically coming from the junior ranks is where they're plucking their players from. So I don't know if that would be such a difference that the different approach of coaching is preferable to have sort of a one-off coach every year like the U.S. does if you are taking other college players. I think it would make sense to have a college coach in place for that. And like you said, I think it can be a prestige job for these coaches, which they can then use as a recruiting tool or a chip that they can say, hey, you can play under me, a World Juniors seasoned coach. And yeah, I've coached Team USA before. And so I think it works from the US's perspective. Canada's been more successful with the World Juniors historically, but they had a pretty big head start basically as a program. So,
I don't think USA had taken it seriously until mid 2000s.
Right.
At least that's kind of what it feels like.
Right. And for
first game on the 26th against Latvia, then Slovakia and Switzerland on the 28th, 29th, and the 31st against Finland. All games are at 3:00 Central Time, and then 2nd, 4th, and 5th are the quarterfinals, semi, and gold medal game.
Yeah, it feels like it's been a bit since I've really gotten into World Juniors, and it feels like I've said that on this podcast in years past, saying that I'm going to commit to watching more World Juniors. Let's hope I can stick to it this year.
Well, I mean, and in your fairness, I mean, they're bury these games on NHL.
That has been the issue.
I mean, you can't do that. I think that's the biggest thing hampering this tournament, because I think this is the most fun tournament to watch, bar none. And I would even put this up there against the Olympics of professional, somewhat professional.
Well, it certainly is an upgrade from the previous two Olympics, where they've had AHL grinders and a couple of college players.
Younger, it's faster, and you have players that make mistakes, and that leads to exciting hockey.
Yeah.
When you get two amazing teams going up against each other that don't make a lot of mistakes, that leads to a boring hockey game. It's usually not a lot of chances back and forth. But burying these on NHL Network, you got to get these on ESPN. Even ESPN Plus, but I mean ESPN 2, I think would kind of be the shoe-in. I mean, these are 3:00 games. What are you doing in the winter at 3:00? Like, you got to get these off NHL Network, and and the reason why I say that is because it's just NHL Network is just not in a lot of houses, because it's tucked into like a 4th or 5th tier, like not even on the sports package.
Right.
I think Sling has it, and then obviously Fubo. But those are kind of your two options for streaming, and Fubo is ridiculously expensive. I think it's like $70 a month. But I've got YouTube TV that doesn't have it. That has CBS Sports, which is why I have YouTube TV. But Hulu, I don't think has it. Hulu and Live TV doesn't have it. And then, Charter is what I have in my area. They have it on like some obscure tier that I have to pay up the wazoo for a bunch of other channels that I don't have. So that's the main thing holding this tournament back. Because I bet if this gets in front of more people and more eyes watch the World Juniors, you're going to convert a lot more hockey fans.
Wondering out loud when they played the rescheduled 2022 World Juniors in August, speculating out loud, like, yeah, maybe it's better not to play it in the middle of the season, maybe moving it to a point in the schedule where it's not disrupting other teams' regular season schedules. Maybe that would be a benefit. I don't think August is a great time, though, for it. And I don't really know what a better time would be. You could push it off past the college season, but then you're going to bump up into NHL playoffs. You could maybe bump it into like September, like right before the college hockey season, late September maybe. But that's, again, a kind of a weird time to play hockey. They did that with like that World Cup of hockey, which who knows if that's ever going to come back. But the one year they did it in 2016, that was in like September. Because, again, they didn't want to disrupt the regular season. I don't feel like that came off swimmingly. There was multiple issues that didn't come off swimmingly, but that might have been one of them. So maybe this is the best time to do it. Obviously, it is sort of a natural lull in the NCAA schedule.
And that's the thing, is that we do have this lull of a couple of teams not scheduling
and
games
Canada,
they don't have to.
Canada doesn't care about NCAA scheduling. Like I said, they don't take their players from that either.
Yeah.
So for them, it might not
all
matter.
the Canadian leagues are still playing throughout this team.
It's probably similar to these NCAA teams. They might have to play short a man or two for a couple of games. And yeah, as long as you're not a Michigan who's going to miss 6 guys in a situation like that, which I don't think is the case. Just glancing at the Canadian roster, right? It's not like I saw the same OHL team over and over and over again. It's not like you're going to be completely gutted. So they'll make it work with missing one of their studs for a game or 2 or 3. So yeah, I'm gonna try my darndest to watch some more World Juniors this year, and I'll let you know if I stick to that.
All right, perfect. Sounds good. Let's kind of run down the standings here, but first, I believe we're going to take a quick ad break. So, I believe we've got a sponsor here for this episode. So, so stay tuned here for just kind of run through the standings, and then we'll predict the second half of the standings, kind of where we see everything going. But take a quick listen to our sponsor.
That's right. Well, today's podcast is brought to you by Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is St. Cloud's #1 spaghetti stand. We've revolutionized the way you think about spaghetti. No need for a fork and plate. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is spaghetti on the go. Think of it like an ice cream cone of spaghetti. Our delicious spaghetti is served in an equally delicious warm garlic bread cone, all held together by one of our signature meatballs at the bottom. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs has a long history serving St. Cloud. It all goes back to 1921, when George Michaelopoulos arrived in St. Cloud from his native Greece after the Great War. He had one dream: to open up a spaghetti stand. He scrimped and saved for 8 years and finally opened up at George's Spaghetti Shack on Lake George in September 1929. Unfortunately for George and for all of St. Cloud, the stock market crash of 1929 happened just 3 weeks after George's Spaghetti Shack opened. George was ruined, and so was the business. But in 2022, Nick Michaelopoulos revived his grandfather's dream by opening Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And it's a portable business that can set up shop anywhere. Business parks, schools, sporting events, even weddings and funerals. Just call 1-888-GET-CLOUDY to set up your date with Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. That's 1-888-GETCLDY. Mention this ad and get a free extra meatball with your first order. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, when spaghetti just isn't enough.
Well, I don't know about you, but that just sounds delicious. So thank you to Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs for being a sponsor of the podcast.
Yes, indeed.
So let's take a look at the NCHC standings here. Your lovely Huskies sitting in second with 20 points, right behind Denver, who's got 23. In third place, Colorado College. What the heck? 17 points, and Omaha in fourth at 15. Um, wow. And tied at 13 points is Minnesota, Duluth, and Western Michigan. North Dakota sitting at seventh place with 12, and Miami, fresh off their win, is still in the cellar with 7 points. So, I mean, obviously, with my disbelief as I'm going through the standings, yeah, there's no way anybody could have predicted this order at the beginning of the year. You know, already you hear the echoes of Fireberry from North Dakota. So I think all is right with the world when you when you get that. But just kind of off the top of your head, what are your thoughts about some of these teams, where their placements are, and where things are going to kind of go from here?
I guess I got to go back to the first episode or the season preview episode to get the exact. I think I can get off the top of my head. I know that I had Denver and Miami correct, first and eighth. I had those two right, and I think I had Western Michigan in fifth, and they're tied for fifth right now. So I don't know if that counts, but everything else was off.
I think that's better than what I did. So
yeah, because I know that you had Denver third. I was surprised by that. Did you have North Dakota third? Did you have North Dakota first?
I had North Dakota first and Duluth second.
And we both had St. Cloud fourth. Know that.
Mm-hmm.
And you had Omaha last.
I had Omaha last.
Okay, so if you're going to redo your prediction, first of all, who do you got number one? We don't need to go through maybe all 8, but just first bullet point. I think it's basically between Denver and St. Cloud, and I would still take Denver.
I would still take Denver, yeah.
I don't. How about this?
I don't think Denver's that. I don't put them on a pedestal. Like, I think they're a solid team, don't get me wrong, but
yeah, I don't think they're as good as they were last year.
They had a little trouble. They had a little trouble with Lindenwood. And again, I'm not a huge fan of Krona. Like, I think he's a little overrated. I think he can be beat. So, yeah, they're not as deep. They don't have nearly the scoring talent as they do from last year. So I don't, NCHC, it's down this year. For all the chest thumping that this conference loves to do about, it's always a grind and, we're the best in college hockey, et cetera. Not anymore. And we knew this was going to happen because college hockey ebbs and flows all the time. The power's out east, it's out west. It goes back and forth with different classes and whatnot. So it's been out west here for a while. I think things have kind of moved out east now. But as far as kind of where we're at with overall the schedule, I think Denver is going to be number one towards the end of the season. They got us again for St. Cloud. They got, maybe a couple of tougher battles. I mean, they got one at Western Michigan, one series there, but I mean, 2 against Colorado College. They're home against Duluth. Or I'm sorry, 4 against Colorado College. They're home against Duluth. So it's home against North Dakota. Home against Miami. Like, I think they got it kind of wrapped up here. They're really going to have to stumble.
Yeah, I agree. Talking about the NCHC and this being a down year for the conference reminds me of the first year of the NCHC, which prior to this year might turn out to be worse than that first year. Who knows? But I would think that first year to date is the weakest year for the NCHC. Was the weakest year. And that year you had 3 teams get in. You had St. Cloud, who won the Penrose, and then lost in the first round of the playoffs to Miami, if you remember. but were strong enough in pairwise to still make the tournament, winning the Penrose that year. Then you had North Dakota, who had to win the third place game in the NCHC tournament in order to make it to the NCAAs, and then they ended up going to the Frozen Four. That was the 0.6 goal year.
The 0.6 seconds, yep. Against Minnesota.
So they barely made it in as a 4 seed, and then you had Denver.
They had to win against Western Michigan,
in the
and
third
then
place
Wisconsin
game.
had to win the Big Ten, because they were playing, I think, maybe Ohio State, who would have been the last at-large team.
I think I can't remember
taken their spot.
I can't remember if North Dakota was dependent on that to win or not. I know they needed to win that Western game.
It was
okay.
It was both.
Okay,
they needed both to happen. Both did happen. So then they got paired up in the first round against Wisconsin.
And then they ended up winning and going to the Frozen
And
Four.
then they ended up beating Wisconsin. So it's hey, thanks for letting us into the tournament.
So yeah, team barely making the field and needing help in order to do that. And then you had Denver.
And then they played Ferris F and State that year too in the second. That went to 2 overtimes.
Right.
In the regional final, that went to 2 overtimes.
So then you also had Denver make the tournament as the sixth place team. And they won the NCHC tournament that year. They would not have made the tournament if not for winning. They wouldn't have made the NCAAs without winning the NCHC tournament. Is this year going to be somewhat similar, where you have 2 teams make it as at-larges and then have a third team win the tournament that would not have qualified if not for winning the NCHC tournament? Is that going to be perhaps the scenario, or are we maybe only going to have 2 teams in? I think that might be a definite sort of possibility here between those 2 options. And that might come down to how we judge this season. If they're only getting 2 teams in, that's the first time the league hasn't gotten at least 3 in. And that very well might qualify it as being the worst year of the conference. Which is not to
Denver right now. Denver's 4 in pairwise. St. Cloud's at 6. And then the next person in the cutoff is North Dakota at 21. Western Michigan's at 23. Omaha's at 25. So you got a clump of teams there in the low 20s.
And so you might right now if a third team were to qualify, it would need to be through the tournament. The NCHC tournament, winning that, which is definitely a possibility. I don't know, as far as trying to predict the rest of the standings the rest of the way, like I said, Denver and St. Cloud being 1-2, I think is pretty solid. I just don't see CC sticking at 3rd. I don't really see Omaha sticking at 4th. And I don't see North Dakota sticking at 7, even though I'd love that. Who's making a move here? Let's just say who you got for the home ice slots.
Do you want? Okay, how about that? We could do home ice. We could do who's up, who's down, who gets up.
How about your home ice? I think we're agreed that Denver and St. Cloud are pretty good bets to be 2 of the 4 teams that host in the first round. Who are your other 2 teams that you got hosting a first round playoff series? It's a tough one.
That's tough. I'm gonna go with Western Michigan. I'm gonna go with Western Michigan and North Dakota.
That's not bad.
And the reason why I say that is I think both of those teams can score goals.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing with Minnesota Duluth is they can't put the puck in the net. They've got 42 goals on the year. Miami is lowest with 41, and that's after a 5-goal outing. But I did not expect Minnesota Duluth to struggle this much scoring. Now, obviously, Sandelin teams, their bread and butter has become from that latch or that strong defensive play. But this is a whole new level of inept scoring that I don't think that they're going to be able to to bump up. Omaha, I'm not sold on them. I think they're just way too streaky. I mean, they had their chance there this last series. and they really just laid an egg by losing two different ways. Where you were able to score, but you couldn't keep the puck out of your net, and then one where all of your scoring faltered. And you lose the same way over and over again. You know what your issue is, but when you go back and forth against a team that you're really fighting against with Colorado College like that, it's a little bit tougher to swallow. And then Colorado College, I just don't see them as well. Seeing them in third is just kind of eye popping to me. I don't think they're going to stay there. Maybe in 3 years I could see it, but definitely not right now. So I feel them dropping. I don't like to say I think North Dakota. I still have my faith in them, but I do think that they're going to jump up, and Western Michigan as well.
I'm tempted to put Omaha in that top four because, as we mentioned, their schedule is favorable.
Their schedule is nice. Yeah.
Done with Denver. Only one series with St. Cloud. It's home heavy in the second half. They got 4 home series versus 3 road series in the second half. But as you said, I just don't trust that team to really get it done. I think North Dakota is sort of the conventional choice here. Saying that they're 7th place is a little deceiving. I mean, they're 3 points behind Omaha, who's in 4th. I mean, that's just the difference of one win. 1 3-point win separates 4th and 7th. Just 5 points separate 7th and 3rd with them in CC. North Dakota has of these 6 teams that we've mentioned, or in the bottom the bottom 6 of the league right now. I think North Dakota has the better talent of anyone. They just haven't really played very well as a group. But thinking back to the Haxtell days, they saved their best hockey for the second half.
Yeah,
and so maybe that is also
maybe that's what I'm triggered by. I've got that trauma of them just ripping off a 70% win percentage in the second half of the year,
and with CC. Their road, they've got 1 extra road series in the second half of the year, so a lot of road games for them, plus those Denver games. The games that they play Denver at home sometimes are road contests, just based on. Actually, one of those games is it's one of the Denver games, but they're moving it to the Avalanche Arena for one of those games. I think in February. But
that's cool.
But just playing Denver at home or there, it's going to be tough, I think, for CC to beat them. So I think that the schedule kind of plays against CC. If I got to pick another team, though, I mean, I don't want to say the same as you, but I think I do tend to agree that Western is probably better than CC. I think Western's better than Omaha. Who knows? I mean, Omaha swept Western. I guess I can't quite say that confidently. And their goaltender, we talk about like DeRitter and Elston for North Dakota. Cameron Rowe has not been impressive for Western Michigan either. And you're talking about Denver being a one-line team. Western Michigan is like the one-line team. I mean, they're a super line. That line is... I think all 3 of those guys are within like the top 10 or 12 nationwide in points. All those individual players. So, but do they have enough? Do they have the depth beyond that line? Is the question. To be special, I'll say North Dakota, and I'm wincing here, grimacing, but I'll take Omaha in the 4th position. But,
okay, all right.
So, but it's a crapshoot. I mean. Who knows? Now we see Duluth finally wake up and they put 5 goals in a game average the rest of the year, and they're 3rd in the conference, and maybe it is. It's just Duluth and Dakota are the 2 teams that we kind of expected. Maybe they're the ones that emerge. Wouldn't shock me, but between Duluth and Dakota, Duluth definitely seems like the team in more danger, in more trouble here, and. So, but maybe we got the second half of the season to find out again how wrong we are.
How wrong? Yeah, exactly. Right. They're gonna we're all going to be eating crow when Colorado College is lifting the Penrose, right?
That's right.
So I didn't notice that Western Michigan also is, on a little bit of a snide right now. With 3 losses and in over a shootout loss to North Dakota as well in their last 4. So they've only 1 point in their last 4 games.
It's not good.
Even going back, that's not great, Bob.
Not great.
So exactly, they're like we talked earlier. They're in the Great Lakes Invitational. They got Michigan Tech. So I kind of wish St. Cloud had like some type of tournament like that, or like I miss St. Cloud being involved in tournaments. We had the Everblades. We used to be involved in that, I think, a few years ago, and I don't know. I like tournaments. I like trophies. I think they're just kind of a fun little thing. I think if we could do the North Star College Cup right, I think it could make a lot of sense, but it definitely didn't the way they did it. So.
Well, they got
St. Cloud. I mean, I know nothing about I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
I'm saying they got invited to the GLI, but then were uninvited by the GLI. That was like 10 years ago. It was the year that they decided that it was the year that the Red Wings got the Winter Classic at Michigan Stadium. So or was it maybe they were playing an outdoor game at Comerica. Maybe it wasn't the Winter Classic, but the GLI decided to piggyback on whatever I thought it was the Winter Classic, but they decided to play the GLI outside. And I know that was at Comerica Park, the Tigers park. And because of that, they wanted an all Michigan GLI. And
so we got uninvited. We got booted.
They told St. Cloud, thanks, but no thanks. That was I think 2012. I think was the year that was supposed to happen. But they ended up playing RPI that weekend. It was like a last minute scramble right before the season. They had to put someone on the schedule for a one-off. So they never went back to RPI. It was just a one-time scheduling trip. But RPI was so I think that was the year that that was 12-13. So that would have been the year that St. Cloud made their first Frozen Four. Anyway.
So who replaced us then?
I think it was Western
Michigan?
Because that was in the days of Michigan Tech, and Michigan were always in it. And then they'd have two. They used to always have one out-of-state team. I think North Dakota won the GLI once. They would have the Boston teams would do it every now and then. So you used to have 3 Michigan teams, and then one out-of-Michigan team would be the 4th team. And I think because they wanted all Michigan teams, I think Western Michigan was the team to replace St. Cloud that year. And I think they won that GLI, actually, Western Michigan, the outdoor one. So anyway, another tangent.
Another tangent. And you said that was, 12, 13. Was it 13, 14 then?
It might have been. I thought it was. I thought it was the year that RPA. Park.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe I was off on the years then. I thought it was the year that RPI played St. Cloud.
You said you said 2013, but then so it was the 2013-2014 season.
Okay, so I must have been off the game. The year.
Yeah, so I mean, you were off, but you weren't off because you said 2013, but you said the 2013 season where St. Cloud went to the Frozen Four,
which I thought was the year they played RPI. But maybe that detail is off. I might be wrong. Newsflash.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Western Michigan did end up winning. Yeah, they beat Michigan 3-2 in overtime, and then in overtime against Michigan Tech 1-0. I don't know, non-conference. All this non-conference stuff is just so interesting to me because I think North Dakota released some of their non-conference over the next couple of years, even. And Duluth, I know, some of my Twitter friends on Duluth, they are always upset because they're I can never plan road trips or whatnot because you never know who's their non-conference opponents until, I think they even released their schedule incredibly late as well. So
yeah, Schlossman's on top of that. He's very plugged in to the non-conference slate for North Dakota. I've been doing some digging with that, actually. Being the traveling fan, I'm always interested in travel opportunities and whatnot, and I've been asking around, and I've got a nugget for you. I've got a scoop. When talking about non-conference schedules, we have an exclusive.
This podcast.
I had to play a journalist. I had to put my journalist hat on and check out some sources and hit the pavement a little bit here.
I'm really excited.
I actually think you might enjoy this. I have a hunch you might go ooh about this one. So the schedule for next year has not been finalized yet. It's not official, but I am hearing that the Michigan Wolverines are in St. Cloud State's non-conference schedule.
What?
I'm hearing the next 2 years.
Are you serious? Like you're putting this on?
I have good. Really? I have some good plugged-in sources. This is not just. I'm not hearing this from a barfly. Again, not finalized. And from what I'm hearing, it's Michigan coming to St. Cloud next year, and then St. Cloud returning the trip to Ann Arbor the following year. Again, not finalized. I am not sure who the Michigan coach would have been that initially put this, had this idea with Larson. If it was Pearson, who's obviously not there anymore, or if it's this Narado, who's their interim coach, I would say there is a non-zero chance that this doesn't go off because of the untenuous or because of the unsure situation with Michigan's coach.
Just in case Guy Godowski leaves and wants to schedule an Atlantic hockey team instead.
Yeah, if Godowski takes the job, he's going to look at that and say, we don't go to St. Cloud.
We want Bentley. Bentley.
But barring that, I do think that there's there's action being the wheels are in motion, and so hold me to it. If this turns out to be BS, come back and never listen to me ever again on anything. But this one,
don't say that. Don't say that part.
This one's coming from.
We'll just bring it up every episode.
I got some good authority on this one. So
that'd
be a good get. If it does happen,
we're gonna have to call that the Mark Hardigan Revenge series after his
and for them to come to St. Cloud. I mean, that really hits our St. Cloud Upper Midwest insecurity. Nobody likes us. That really warms those cockles of the heart. Obviously, because Red Berenson couldn't find St. Cloud on a map if you gave them the state of Minnesota. Have never played Michigan in the regular season, I believe.
No, just 0-2. I did here just quickly look this up. So the first game, it was the 0-0-1 season. That was in Grand Rapids, where we lost 4-3,
which was the year that St. Cloud was the 1 seed of that regional. Just the 3-team regionals back then. So Michigan, I don't know who they played, but they would have played the day before, and then St. Cloud would have gotten a bye to the regional final. So then they played Michigan to go to the Frozen Four and lost. And then the following year, they were in Ann Arbor for that regional, I believe.
Yeah, they played at Yost. Yeah.
So never have played Michigan outside the state of Michigan. And never played them in the regular season. This will be a historic series.
What's the furthest west of the Mississippi that... I guess Mariucci is west of the Mississippi, isn't it? So, okay, never mind.
Technically, yes. It's nestling it, though. Although I think you could say the same thing about St. Cloud.
Well, Yeah,
So,
St. Cloud is nestling it too. But
I think they made it out to Arizona State one of those years with one of Berenson's last years. And I think they played at the Coyotes Arena. Like, there was no way he was playing at that old Oceanside Arena in Tempe. But I remember that. But yeah, Michigan's better. I mean, most teams are better, quote unquote, with scheduling non-conference, like reciprocating deals than Penn State. I was going to say, but that's a very low bar to clear. But Michigan's been around a little bit more. Like, they went up to the UP. Pearson was a Tech guy, so I think they went up to the UP during his tenure. So they've been to some smaller cities, and so it's not going to be completely out of the blue. If they would have gotten Penn State, that would have been oh my god, like Godelski must have died or something. Like, something cataclysmic would have happened for that to have occurred.
well, I remember also there were stories about Wolverines players on that team like harassing the cheerleaders, and like there was a lot of things. There's a lot of dirt if you ask around to the early aught fans of St. Cloud State Husky hockey. They got a lot of stories about what happened in those two games. So but yeah, so in the first year, the 2000-2001, yeah, Michigan played the day before. They won 4-3 against Mercyhurst.
I had that hunch.
So-
I thought it was them, but
And
it was
then-
just 4. It was
yeah,
just
so-
4-3 over them. Really?
And then 4-2, and then that's if if every once in a while when I want to feel pain, I'll go on YouTube and there's the video of Hardigan missing on the open
Right.
net, and you could argue that cost him the Hobie that year. I mean, it was coming down on the Michigan goal. He just had him dead to rights too, so that's frustrating.
And-
I would. That's as much as we also rag on Michigan, like that'd be pretty a big get if that's able to come to fruition. So,
Indeed.
that's quite the scoop that you've got.
Yeah.
Look at us
Let's-
breaking. I mean, not officially breaking news because it's not confirmed,
It's-
obviously.
It's some good speculation, and it's some good a good chance of it happening.
If you were having your percentage meter, like, are we at like 60, 70%,
I would
80%?
say higher than that.
Oh wow,
Not 100% though.
interesting.
And yeah, maybe 90%. It's just a hunch at that point.
90% is a hunch.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't have confirmation.
Gotcha.
I fished for it. Couldn't get it,
You
but
fished for
I
it.
got some decent hints. So,
No, I like it. Perfect. Sounds good. Well, if that comes to fruition, credit us. So,
yes.
or credit Andrew, and don't credit me. I didn't do anything about this, but interesting. So, anything else you kind of wanted to touch on before we get to questions?
I think we can probably move on. I mean, we not a ton of action over the weekend, just a handful of games. You mentioned watching that, or catching a little bit at least of that Lindenwood Denver game, at least the Saturday game, which got a little authority
Yes.
there for Denver.
Closer than it needed to be. That's for sure.
Any comment on that? I missed all the game I saw the most of this weekend was Long Island and Northeastern, which surprisingly went into overtime. Northeastern had a 3-0 lead and coughed it up, but then won in overtime. And then I guess of note, at least St. Cloud adjacent relevance to the Bemidji State sweep, overtime win plus regulation win of Mankato
Yeah.
in Mankato.
Mankato.
Now, St. Cloud playing both of those teams this year, I guess I don't know if it really mattered who won because you played both of them. I think you need. Wouldn't it be better if Mankato, because you swept them, if they play better, it makes those wins. But then again, if Bemidji wins, then the loss doesn't hurt as much. St. Cloud's loss
Yeah,
to
I
them
think
doesn't hurt as
think
much.
losses hurt more than wins help.
Right.
So
That's
I
probably
think,
true.
So I think this in the long run kind of helped us, keeping us pumped up a little bit. So
Yeah, and who in the CCHA wants to win that league? I mean, you got Bemidji, Mankato, who both have been kind of frustrating teams. You know, have a good weekend one weekend. You know, Mankato gets swept by Ferris F State, which is more surprising than Bemidji sweeping them. But then going out to Bowling Green, who wasn't first at that time, Mankato sweeps them somewhat handily, and then returns home and lays an egg against Bemidji. You got Michigan Tech. You know, they lost a game at Lake State, who is terrible this year. They're like second or third worst in pairwise. Just an awful team. So that's a terrible loss for them. And yeah, you got Bowling Green, who I said, you know, gets swept by Minnesota State, and they've had some decent wins, but some bad losses. Who is going to emerge from this crap pile that is the CCHA this year?
looking at Bemidji State, it's really interesting. They have gone to overtime 8 times this season already.
That's one less than 9.
That's one less than. I don't think we can do that joke twice in a podcast.
Maybe we'll just have to wait a weekend until they get to 9. Because at this pace, it's basically every weekend they're going to OT.
Yeah, that's.
And what did you say? Like Michigan?
I want to say there was a
Michigan Tech
season
too.
like that for the Huskies.
Yeah, Michigan Tech, as you mentioned, a bunch of overtime losses this year. I guess that's like, yeah. Looking at the CCHA standings, everyone's got a handful of overtime wins and overtime losses.
Yeah,
that might be a hint that it's just these teams aren't good enough to win in 60 minutes, and you got to slug it out in a 3-on-3 in order to get a victor.
to get a goal.
Yeah. Northern Michigan, I remember being surprised that they were ranked number 2 in their preseason poll. They're down at 6, just 4 points ahead of St. Thomas, who's not.
Yeah, I think I had them at second with a caveat of I can see them being first. I had them a lot higher.
Well, they had a couple of this like Vanderbeck that they have. They had a couple of guys that had real good years last year that were returning, and that Vanderbeck is having a good year for him. But yeah, they have not been all that impressive. One of the 2 teams other than Western Michigan to lose to Alaska Anchorage this year, which is not good, Bob. Yeah, I mean, I've been sticking to my guns as far as just, Mankato's gonna win this conference, right? But I mean, they're tied with Tech at with 25 points, but Bemidji has 2 games in hand, so you got to give Bemidji, I guess, the benefit or the slight edge at this point of the season, but just don't see that being a tournament team. And anything can happen in the playoffs too, so maybe it doesn't necessarily matter who wins the conference, although that team will have home ice for the entirety of their conference tournament. So it is a big thing to win it. But you got any? I'll still go Mankato. I feel like they have the talent. I just don't know what exactly their issue is. Who do you got coming out of that league? You gonna go with Bemidji?
Let's go Bowling Green.
All right. Okay.
Let's do it.
You're
let's
bowling.
Go,
you are a bowling fan too. So you got a poster of Pete Weber in your bedroom, right?
I did. Who do you think you are? I am.
You said, love that one. Yeah.
PDW. For a while, in college, I used to watch bowling instead of instead of NFL football.
I think I
So,
might prefer that too.
It's 267 is my high game.
Wow. I don't know. I'm sure I've never come close to that. I don't probably have even broken 200, but it's fun. It's a fun game.
Sadly, I didn't flirt with the 300 though, because I think it started with a 9 spare, and then it was strikes all the way up to the 10th frame.
How many in a row though?
I think it was 2 up until
really?
the 10th frame.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was feeling it. What can I say?
I'll say.
I miss bowling so much, and I actually thought bowling would like spike up in popularity because I mean, you just sit around on your phone until it's time for you to get up there and roll the ball, and then you're back there sitting on. I thought the young kids would really like it, but it hasn't. It's really suffered in popularity.
Well, maybe
they need more people like Pete Weber out there.
That's right.
Just showmanship.
That's
and
right.
Whatnot. Questions. We have questions. Let's get it going with friend of the show, Dan Jacobson. What is your favorite Christmas cookie? He said his favorites are butterscotch brownie pinwheels. And
Can't say I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, I am not familiar with it at all. They look pretty good, but I mean, if they're brownie, are they more brownie than cookie? Is that cheating?
I think he's cheating.
Does it? Oh, okay, all right. I guess I could look at the recipe and actually see if it's more brown. I'm a sucker for brownies. I love brownies so much.
Brownies are good.
So, anyway,
I
Christmas cookie. What do you got?
I don't know if they. I mean, my mom and her like sisters would always have like a Christmas cookie bake, and various different kinds. I don't know if these qualify as Christmas cookies, but for me they are because like we eat them during Christmas. But I don't know what you call them, but it's like the ones. I think they're like a peanut butter cookie, and then they have like a Hershey's Kiss in the middle of them. Are you familiar with this kind of cookie?
Yeah.
Those are
chocolate star.
What is it?
Chocolate star cookies.
Okay.
Those peanut butter chocolate star cookies. They're called Star of Bethlehem cookies. It depends where you go with it. But yes, those are my favorites too.
I did not know the name, so thank you for clearing that up. What I guess maybe he's trying to goad us into talking about gingerbread. What's your take on gingerbread?
No. No, and like apparently like ginger is good for like when you're pregnant and whatnot. Like it balances something, and I don't know. So like there was always ginger in our house when Teresa was pregnant and couldn't stand it. Like they had like ginger gummies or whatnot that she would, and it's like no, they are gingerbread man. Somebody catch that guy because he deserves to get caught.
Not building not building a gingerbread house with your kids.
Nope. No.
I guess I'm not anti gingerbread, but it's probably not the first Christmas cookie that I'm gonna have. I'll put it that way. But good, timely question. To be expected from Dan Jacobson.
Johnny Mac had 4 questions.
Jeez.
One of them was, do you think the standings would change much in the second half? We already addressed that. So, number 1, who do you think has grown or will grow the most this season? I think actually last podcast you wanted to talk a little bit about Adam Ingram. So I don't know if you've had a hot take with him or maybe this is a good time to talk about him. He's one that I have found like I see glimpses of. I think it's one of those things where once it clicks for him, it's going to click, and I think everything's going to be incredibly he's going to be an incredibly important player for us.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I see it. What's your thought?
Yeah, he of the second half of that question, who do you expect to grow in the second half of the season? That'd be my answer for that. Half of it would be Ingram, and I want to get back to him. I'm trying to think of the first part of the question. Who has grown the most so far? Dude, have you checked out Mason Reiners? He's grown like 4 inches since the beginning of the year. No, just kidding. I would say
Riseborough. He's like 6'5", isn't he?
he is rising. Rosborough.
That's
Get it? Get it?
Roseborough.
I got.
He's only 6'3".
I would say
looks like a monster
so.
out there, though.
I've liked.
Not like Ben Storm big.
Yeah, that's well, few people are, but
I took a picture of me standing next to Ben Storm, like a little candid shot, and like I'm 6'1", so like, I on the taller side. I just look like a peewee next to him, and there's not a lot of people who make me feel that way.
Yeah, big boy. But yeah, as far as guys that have grown so far this year or have taken a step forward, we've mentioned Peart. God, again, now it's got me so screwed up now. Committed to Peart, now we're back to Peart. Just thinking Rush. I just got to think Rush.
Nope, I just say nope. USA Hockey, you're wrong. I'll just say that. I'm gonna keep going with Peart.
Maybe now
how that sounds anyway.
Now we zag even more. Peart. Any way you say it, Jack, I think has definitely stepped up.
Jackie P.
Stepped up from last year. And maybe that World Juniors in the summer sort of helped him with that development, but I think he has really cleaned up the riskiness that he has, or the potential that he was showing last year for that. Cleaner with the puck, and I think he's now become more assertive, controlling the puck and being an offensive force without sacrificing defense. I think he's really stepped up, becoming sort of that elite defenseman that we thought we might be getting when he arrived as a high second round draft pick. So I'm really impressed with his development this year. I also throw in Kupka, a guy that last year we're kind of scratching our heads at one point saying, what exactly is his role here on this team? I think he's found that role as this sort of finisher type on that Crookshank-Miller line. He's not a guy that's going to necessarily wow you with playmaking skill, but if he can park in front of the net, get some rebound goals.
He's got really good net front presence.
And grinding stuff out in the corners and behind the net, cycling plays and whatnot. I think he has stepped up and when he was hurt for those couple of weeks, I think his absence was missed during that time. So yeah, he's stepped up in a nice way. As far as Ingram goes, and as alongside Peart, talking about him last year, my whole refrain here was, well, these guys are 18, they're freshmen. I kind of got to give them a little bit of leeway here because they're still getting acclimated to this new level of hockey, blah, 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 which I think is definitely true. But then, I look at the national scoring leaders in the country. 4 of the top 5 are freshmen. And we got 1 sophomore in there, Graf from Quinnipiac. This, and freshmen, high-end freshmen at least, that has not been a rarity in college hockey over the last decade or so. Not to say that Ingram is on the same level as Fantilli, for instance, who is not. Fantilli is so young, he's not even draft eligible yet, or he wasn't over this past summer. He will be next year, and probably be number 2 overall pick at this rate, if not number 1. It's likely between him and this Bedard who will also be on the Canadian junior team, so you can potentially watch the top 2 draft picks playing for Canada in these juniors. I just don't bring that up to throw Ingram under the bus, but I'm just throwing it out there to say that it's definitely possible for freshmen to carry your team. And it's definitely possible for freshmen to have a big impact on a team. I think Ingram, he's really shown some flashes of the skill here. And like Peart, definitely think his second year, which I do think we're going to have a second year of Ingram. I do think that will be a noticeably better from the start campaign for Ingram. But I do think it's possible here in the second half. He's got a half a season under his belt now. He's been getting some power play time with his team. I think part of his issue is he's been saddled with a unstable situation when it comes to line mates, which I think forces him to have to create some chemistry with a lot of different line partners, which is that's a tough task for anybody, much less you add the extra factor of his youth and inexperience. That's a tough assignment. And when he was briefly put up onto that line with Mietnin, some clicking in that Bemidji State home game, where that was the game I believe that Ingram had that highlight reel goal of his. So we've definitely seen the high end of his talent. And we've seen him take some penalties here, more penalties than I would have liked, and the penalties that aren't necessarily the good penalty category, like kind of unnecessary plays. And so if we can sort of tamp down on those, be a little bit more disciplined in that aspect of the game, and then also maybe just gaining a little bit of confidence. I think he's got a nice shot, and so I think he's kind of going to be an X factor here. If he can develop into, and let's say 10 points in the first half of the season in 18 games, that's not terrible. He's able to produce. I'm looking at the 2 goals though. Like if he can maybe get into the double digits of goals this year, past 10, 11, 12 goals, somewhere in that range, have a 8 to 10 goal second half, that might mean this team goes far this year. And so I don't know what you're thinking here. I want you to step in here with how are you kind of viewing his first half, and are you with me as far as having optimism that his second half will be even better than this first half? What are you thinking?
Well, I do. I mean, I do agree with you on a lot of your points. One thing I just kind of want to add into is, he's had 6 points here in the last 7 games. Going back to the Colorado College game, and then 2 against North Dakota, and then 2 against Miami, obviously not scoring against the last Miami. But, that's about the time, if I am looking correctly, that Colorado College, Western Michigan, let's see, Denver. So Denver, he played center. So they switched him over to wing in the Western Michigan series. And I think that has really freed him up a little bit. And I think maybe center might have been a little bit too much for him. And again, your line mates, when you're the third center, I mean, he has been paired with Mietnin a couple of times. But I mean, it's been Jack Rogers, Molinar and Ashan a couple of times, Spalacy and Ashan. I mean, you're not going to create a lot of chances with some of those players. Yeah. I mean, let's just face it. So, Sahlquist, I think, also, I think there was a couple of games where when he was in as a wing, Sahlquist was his center. So, we've talked about that. Maybe not. First game against Miami, actually, when he had 2 points, Sahlquist was his line mate. But, I think that move to wing, I think, was a good choice. Now, I remember when he came on, I said we're going to need him at center because we have no center depth. And I still kind of believe that. Now, did I think Crookshank would be as powerful as he's been? No, not at all. But it's something to be said that I think that's still kind of a little bit of an Achilles heel when it comes to this team is that center depth. Um, so it's something to kind of keep a watch on. But I think Ingram is really going to flourish um, in that wing role. I think I think he's a little bit more comfortable there. He's also getting a lot of power play time. And as much as I really don't like his behind the back passes that he likes to do, um, it's working and he's creating chances. So I guess that's a plus. Um, Anything more about Ingram before I want to get to the first part of the question because I think there's somebody fairly big that we haven't been talking about.
Sure. Quick fact check first. I was old. That national scoring leaderboard. I was doing that off the top of my head. Massimo Rizzo actually moved into the top 5 in scoring this weekend. So it's 4 of the top 6 are freshmen and 2 are sophomores. Rizzo being a sophomore as well. So it even
he really padded up with
he
Lindenwood,
did.
huh?
Which bolsters my point. It's all underclassmen, top 6 scorers. McAllister for Western Michigan's got a 6-point lead right now on everybody else. 33 points already. Snuggerud at 27. Certainly didn't see that coming out of McAllister. And that Colin Graff for Quinnipiac Union transfer. Big ripple after Bennett got fired there from Union. Graff leaves. Now he's 4th in the conference, tied for 3rd in scoring. And Dylan Anhorn, the leading scorer of defensemen in the country, also a Union guy last year.
Yeah,
that's a wonder if Bennett wasn't forced out there, would Union be decent this year? It's interesting to speculate that. But anyway, go on to your. I'm interested to hear now who your player, the player who has grown the most.
Has grown the most. Kupka was my second choice. 5 goals in 12 games. He had 5 goals all of last year, which was his highest that he's had in a year. So he's already met that total. 18 points last year, so that definitely was. But I got to look at Jackson Castor, and maybe it's a cop out for picking a goalie, but I mean, you told me at that Quinnipiac game and that series against Minnesota Duluth that Castor would be playing as well as he has been. Yeah, it's his save percentage has dipped a little bit. It's now only a 9.19, so a 9.20 pretty much. But 2.12 goals against average. He's been getting the job done.
Yeah.
And so I think he's kind of been the guy who's grown the most.
That's a good call.
Defensively, Trey Ball, I've been, a fan of him, last year as well. But I think even this year, he's been even more so reliable. And even, I don't want to say he's shown offensively, but I've seen him make some plays down low in the offensive zone a couple of times. So he's been trusting some of that, some of his instincts as well. So I think that's also a good, maybe a little bit under the radar because he's not going to get you a lot of points, but I think he's definitely one that I definitely point at. So, which beloved Wave of Babies players might grab a 5th year? So any of these seniors here that were on the team 4 years ago, COVID kind of screwed me up when it comes to that. But yeah, any of those seniors here you think might grab an extra one? I think Kupka would be one of those. I can't see a lot of opportunities past college for him. ECHL maybe out in Europe, but I think he's kind of a prime example of somebody who could stay in a 5th year.
Yeah, that's a good call. Just looking at CHN of the seniors, I just got to make sure that that these guys aren't fifth-year seniors. I think what they're doing is they're calling these grad students if you're a fifth-year guy, or GR. So, like, Okabe
would be a good
has the ability to come back next year. Same with Cranola. Cranola, looking at that scoring leaderboard, is up there. He's like 15th or so in the country. I lost my... tied for 9th with 23 points. So, top 10 nationwide score right now. So I don't know. I don't know if you expect those guys to come back. Be really great if they did. We saw like Walker bolted last year.
Say that, yeah.
Now he was not drafted, was he? I know he signed up with Toronto. That can be a blessing and a curse for
Toronto Marlies. Like he signed an AHL deal,
right?
So
that could be a blessing or a curse for a team. Like if you guys have, if they have a draft, if a guy is already drafted on the team, they have that exclusive right, and it almost seems natural that they would leave. But then if they're a free agent, in a sense, anybody can sign them. So it's like maybe it's more likely that a guy would bolt if they didn't have, like if the team that drafted them didn't want to sign him, then they probably would come back. But if they were undrafted, 30 teams, and then by extension 30 AHL teams could sign these guys, and that might work against you too. It's hard. I mean, Crandall is putting up a better year than Walker did last year, so it's maybe natural to think that he would be gone after this year. I'm not sure. Maybe he wants another year playing with Okabe and Mietin. Who knows? It's hard to gauge that right now. Kupka is like a guy where I can definitely see him coming back. Like, he fits sort of that Miller mold where it's like he didn't think that he was going to necessarily get a ton of pro offers, and it made sense for him to come back. I could say that like more confidently with Kupka than I would any of those international exchange line guys. How about you? What are you thinking? Any other players that we haven't mentioned here? Any of the other seniors? I guess we got Anhorn, Treyball. Again, this is off of CHN, so might be inaccurate, but Castor is listed here. Okabe we said. So I think that's it. The way Anhorn's playing, maybe we'll be lucky to get another year out of him. Who knows? But Treyball, I could see him definitely coming back. But it's all sort of guessing at this point. But yeah, it's an interesting question to consider, because this is still in that COVID year. We got that was 2021, so that year is free. So we still got a couple more years where guys were like that was Mietin's freshman year. So use him as sort of the gauge of all those guys have the potential of playing 5 years. It's going to span into 2025. That COVID year will still have an effect many years later. So, yeah, interesting to see how it develops.
Yep. And, with Cronulla, who knows if he wants to keep playing with VT Mietin,
right?
Both finish. And also, if it's also going to be the case that Werner Miettinen, who is the younger brother of VT, he comes in, maybe another Finnish, maybe we could have an all Finn line, who knows? So it's, that might play into it, and he'd want to, go a couple years. Obviously, there's a lot more factors that go into it, and we're, who knows when it comes to that, but that's part of the speculation, right? So, I could see all of them staying. I could see some of them going. It's, I just kind of look at it as a surface level of what type of hockey opportunities can you kind of see going forward, for some of these players. And I don't know how many of them I foresee really in the NHL. I also didn't really know if Nick Dowd would be a everyday player,
Right.
and turns out today he scored 2 goals in 11 seconds by himself.
Wow.
So it's
That's a decent shift.
yeah, that's an alright shift, right? So take that, Ovechkin. You don't even do that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
It
he's only
was-
got what 750 goals left to catch Ovechkin.
and counting.
I think he's got 50 goals in the NHL by this point. Dowd,
No,
maybe
I don't think
30. He's been in the league like 5-6 years now, pretty regularly. And he's more of a grinder type, but I think an important player. I think that
so. Oh, look at that. 52.
really, and that's not counting the 2 goals in 11 seconds.
That I don't know.
So at least
52
52
or 54.
That's right. We're in the mid 50s by this point. Oh, good for Nick.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Just a boy from Alabama, Huntsville. Just a boy from Huntsville in a dream.
That's right.
Switching over to women's hockey. Do you think the women's team could finish their push for the top half of the league? That's an interesting question. Now they were humbled a little bit by
Just a little
Minnesota this last weekend with a loss of. No, it wasn't this last weekend. It was the weekend before, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was kind of a blast from the past. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I don't believe they scored a goal on the weekend. 9-0, 5-0, I believe were the scores.
9-0, 6-0.
6-0. Okay. So that's it certainly took a shine off of what has been still a very good first year for Adulski. Top half of the league though, so they're fifth place right now, 19 points. Fourth place Duluth is just at 21 points, but they've got 2 games in hand. Plus, playing Duluth earlier this year, Huskies were handled pretty well by Duluth. Checking, 2-0 loss, 5-1 loss. So not as lopsided as those Gophers scores, but and then above them you got the real cream of the crop: Ohio State, Minnesota, Wisconsin.
You're not catching
them, and you still have another series with Duluth, but based on the fact that Duluth is already ahead of you with some games in hand, I do think it's going to be tough to hop them. And as it stands right now, you'd face them in the playoffs, and so it'll be a tough task. This league it's a grinder. So I mean, wish for the best, obviously, but I wouldn't say it's looking all that hot right now.
I don't think so.
For a top half of the league, but you're 3 points ahead of Minnesota State. Why don't we at least you got them, I believe, 2 series in the second half here. At least just lock down 5th place, which is something to say with this program. I mean, I don't want to make the goal too low, set the bar too low here, but considering the history of women's hockey at St. Cloud, 5th place and playing some competitive games against the
for the first year.
In the first year,
too.
Is certainly nothing to sneeze at. So maybe set that as the goal, and you do have that series against Duluth in the second half, going up there, and maybe you steal a weekend there, and that is a possibility. But I would say realistically, we're looking at 5th as being the high water mark, but we shall see, and just project this into the future. If they can just build on this, and once he gets his recruits in there and continues to establish his system, good things on the horizon, I think, for the women's team.
I think so. Yeah, and that's I think you hit the nail on the head when it talks about when you talk about that Minnesota State series, or two of them here. You got 13th, 14th of January, and then they close out the season here. Um, you lock down fifth place. I mean, not only is that huge for the program, but that gets you a series probably against Minnesota Duluth. You don't have to travel to Wisconsin. You don't have to travel to Ohio State. You don't have to travel to Ritter. So it's maybe Minnesota Duluth. That's somebody you can steal a game from. That 2-0 game. It was just kind of a tough stretch there for about a 5-minute stretch in the first period, where they popped in those 2 goals, where Duluth really kind of took it to the Huskies there in the first period. But ever since then, it was tight. So it's they could sneak up and maybe take a series win there at the end of the season. But I think it's key to be ahead of Minnesota State, and I think if we're ahead of Minnesota State and cement ourselves in that 5 spot in the season, I think that's a huge win for the program, and I think the sky's the limit after that.
Yeah, and looking at the 2 bottom feeders, St. Thomas and Bemidji State, been able to handle them this year, 6-0 combined against those teams. And Minnesota State's another one of those teams that are behind St. Cloud, so you take care of business against them. And it's not like playing Duluth in the playoffs is some sort of, ooh, all right, great. Duluth was the runner-up last year, in the national runner-up, so not like you're getting a cupcake by any means. But as you said, preferable to play them rather than Scotty or the Gophers or defending champion Ohio State. So yeah, let's just scrub that Gopher weekend out. And they play out east to start the year. Got games against New Hampshire and Merrimack to start the second half. I think that's in some sort of tournament situation. Oh, it's down in Ritter. I thought it was out east, but playing Eastern teams at least. But according to CHN, it's a tournament at Ritter. So have a chance to start second half off. And like I said, hopefully the best is not yet to come with this team.
And Merrimack, New Hampshire, those are teams near the bottom of Hockey East right now. Right. Sitting there at New Hampshire right now is 6-14 on the season. And then Merrimack's a little bit worse. It's 6-13-1. So I mean they've only got 6 wins aside here for each. So, but yeah, so that's I think that would be a good thing to watch. We'll check in with them periodically. Like I said, we really want to get more into the women's side and the women's hockey. So, and then last but not least, why isn't Bushy's rankings the one used to make the NCAA tournament field? Why don't we just all hail Buccigross?
I didn't think that there would be a worse poll than the Uscho poll, but yet I am proven wrong because of our friend the Booch. Yeah, I don't. Like I said, who is leading Bucci's poll right now?
Let me check. I want to say it's Minnesota.
Where's St. Cloud in that? If you can pull it up real quick,
let me.
Now I'm indulging the question here, but I'm just curious.
Yep. St. Cloud's 4.
Hey, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Minnesota, Quinnipiac, Denver, and St. Cloud.
Oh, so he's just copying the Uscho poll.
I think wasn't Denver? Didn't they drop in the Uscho poll?
I don't think they. I checked it today. They didn't have one. maybe they thought that the weekend that
Or
wasn't enough to merit redoing the poll again, which disappoints me. It's you usually don't need a reason to put out a worthless poll. You could have done that.
Could have always just put out worse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
okay,
it would have been
on the
great too. Because
12th.
we could have maybe have seen like a Lindenwood single vote for that Denver effort. They literally do not. There's no college hockey games until the GLI, which kicks off next Tuesday. I really want an Ustro poll next Monday, literally based on no games. You can do it. And we're missing out too, because if we had one this week, and then we have one next week, it wouldn't be the exact same. Guarantee you someone would change their vote based on no games played. We're missing out. So maybe we need to let's hope that Bushy stays up. So let me know if Buchigras does his dumb little top 10 next week, and if it's any different. And God, I hope it is.
I'll let you know.
Please do.
So, well, that about
does it.
On an off week where we'll go for again, an hour 50 or so. So why not?
Sounds about right.
Well, you come here for the Michigan scoop,
right?
That's why people are in for it. So. For us, we'll be back with the show next week. Might release on Tuesday, might release on Wednesday. We don't know, for sure, but everybody have a good holiday. Hope you're listening in the car as you're driving up to whatever, safe travels. Stay warm. Here we I don't know how it's going to be like in Arizona for you, but it's going to be, we're going to be fighting for positive temperatures the next week and a half or so. It's going to be bustling cold.
I hear you. It's supposed to get down to 65 tomorrow. So
geez, bring your parka.
I have. It has been a little chilly lately. Yes.
Oh wow! All right, and until next time, go Huskies!
Woo!
Woo!